Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to break down how Jose Mourinho won the tactical battle over Mikel Arteta to help Spurs win the North London derby. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Arsenal in more of a 3-4-3. And because Spurs spent majority of that game without the ball, they often dropped off in a 4-4-2 with Lucas Moura and Sissoko out in the wider areas and Harry Kane and Heung-Min Son looking to press from the front. So when we do break down this game, we're going to focus on how Spurs neutralized Arsenal and where they were able to get into good attacking positions. So what we end up seeing from Spurs when they drop off in that 4-4-2 is that they had Heung-Min Son and Harry Kane pressing from the front against an Arsenal back three. At the start of the game, there were times where you would see Sissoko step out into the path of Kolasinac to make it 3v3, but as that game continued, Sissoko held a much deeper position. So with the midfield bank staying deeper and Harry Kane and Heung-Min Son pushing forward, that is a disjointed press, and it's much easier for Arsenal to play through it. And throughout that game, you ended up seeing Xhaka and Dani Ceballos dropping off deeper to help Arsenal build out of the back, and that's where you end up seeing 4v2s and 5v2s to help Arsenal push forward. So when you end up seeing how easy it was for Arsenal to bypass that Spurs press, you have to question why Jose Mourinho would adopt a disjointed press with only his front men looking to press from the front. Now, the only logical explanation for this is that he did feel that he could force that back three into a mistake, and to no surprise, Spurs' equalizer stemmed from that path where it was Kane and Son pressing Kolasinac and David Luiz, and it ultimately led to Son getting Spurs back into the game. But as you could see, with Dani Ceballos and Xhaka dropping off in those deeper positions to get on the ball, Dani Ceballos' possession throughout that game was tidy, but Jose Mourinho wasn't really worried about that. Mourinho was content with Ceballos having the ball in those deeper positions, and his main focus was on neutralizing the front three and ensuring that the wing backs couldn't get involved. So the genius behind Mourinho's approach was that he looked to stifle each Arsenal player through their base positioning in Arteta's setup. So it only makes sense that we break down how Arsenal were looking to approach that game going forward as well. And we'll start with Lacazette, who often likes to drop off deeper, and at times it does seem like it is a 3-4-1-2, with Lacazette popping up in that space in between Celso and Winks, which ultimately allows Pepe and Aubameyang to make more central movement in beyond the defense. But what you ended up seeing there is that you ended up having Lacazette dropping off into those deeper positions, and he was stifled out of the game by Celso and Winks, who did a dual job on him. Initially, what you ended up seeing was that Celso would be stepping out in towards Xhaka, but if you had Winks shifting out into the wider areas to help with Nicolas Pepe, then what would end up happening was that you would see Celso shift across the pitch to ensure that there was cover on Lacazette. So Lacazette's intent to drop off deeper and receive the ball didn't work out in his favor because he often had those two players marking him out of the game, and even if you had Celso or Winks shifting out to that left-hand side to help out Lucas Moura and Ben Davies, then one of those central midfielders would hold their position and ensure that Lacazette couldn't freely get on the ball to help Arsenal push forward. If we look out to the wider areas, we'll start with Arsenal's right-hand side, and that's where you ended up seeing Hector Bellerin often getting into good positions based off Lucas Moura adopting a narrow position. What you end up seeing was that if that ball was shifted out to Bellerin, Lucas Moura would instantly shift out into that zone, or you would have Ben Davies step forward. Now, what was interesting here was that throughout Nicolas Pepe's reign at Arsenal, you would see him predominantly hold the touchline and Bellerin operating in a narrow position. But here you had Bellerin holding the touchline, and Pepe was dropping off deeper, at times in between Lucas Moura and either Winks or Celso, or just looking to drop off deeper as the ball was pulled out to Bellerin. And then when Davies would step with Lucas Moura tracking, then you would see Nicolas Pepe trying to dart into that space behind the Spurs fullback to get on the ball. Now, what Mourinho did here to close down that threat was was that he had Harry Winks shifting out into that position, tracking that movement, and at times what you'd end up seeing is that it would be 1v3 in that zone, or at the very least 1v2. But Winks or Lo Celso did a very good job of tracking the movement of Nicolas Pepe, and even if Winks or Lo Celso couldn't shift out to Nicolas Pepe, Alderweireld was the free man in that back line, and he was able to shift across to ensure that Nicolas Pepe couldn't break him behind. When we move to the left-hand side, Mourinho's main threat was obviously to limit Aubameyang's overall impact, and what you end up seeing from Aubameyang from that left side position is that he looks to occupy space in between the fullback and the center back, so Mourinho was wary of Aubameyang's threat against Davinson Sanchez and Aurier. So what he ended up doing here was that when the ball was shifted out to Tierney, who would push forward, he had Sissoko track that movement, but that wasn't solely it. Although Sissoko could nullify Tierney through his tactical discipline and his diligent work rate, what we ended up seeing down that left-hand side was that Mourinho instructed Aurier to step out as well. So for the most part, every time Tierney was pushing forward, he was in a 1v2 situation and he struggled to impact that game. That leaves Aubameyang with Davinson Sanchez, and the reason why Mourinho did do that is because when Aubameyang looked to cut into that space behind Aurier, Davinson Sanchez has the athleticism and pace to track that movement and hold the Aubameyang in and around that touchline zone until cover has retreated. So it was evident in that opening half that Mourinho did his homework. With the center backs not pushing forward, he was able to create overloads in those wider areas to neutralize Arsenal's wide threat. He ensured that the wing backs couldn't get forward, and then he neutralized Arsenal's main attacking players. Lacazette couldn't drop deeper without two players on him. Nicolas Pepe's movement into that space was tracked, and that was probably the biggest surprise to Mourinho, given the fact that Pepe has adopted more wider positions than narrow positions. And then out on the left-hand side, he wanted to ensure that there couldn't be any combination play between Tierney and Aubameyang. And if Aubameyang wasn't in 1v2 situations, then he would ensure that his supply line was in 1v2 situations so that he couldn't get on the ball. Also, given the fact that he was matching Aubameyang with the same athleticism and pace into those wider areas. While Spurs continued to dominate the game out of possession, going forward, they were able to find legitimate routes to goal. One was down that right side of Arsenal's defense, where they were able to consistently play balls in beyond Bellerin and Mustafi, and that's where we ended up seeing Lucas Moura break free on one occasion. We saw Kane skip by Mustafi and then create a chance for Heung-Min Son. Later on in that game, we saw Kane break into that space between Mustafi and David Luiz, but get denied by Martinez. And the other avenue to goal for Spurs was the combination between Lucas Moura and Harry Kane. In the opening half, he was able to pounce on a loose Nicolas Pepe touch, cut across Pepe, and then locate Kane darting between Kolasinac and David Luiz to clip that long ball over the top, but Kane couldn't guide that bouncing effort beyond Martinez. And when we look to the chance in the second half, it was Lucas Moura receiving that ball on the left touchline, and what he ended up doing was that he split those two players and Bellerin and Mustafi to locate Kane's run in between the center backs, but once again, it was Martinez standing tall to deny Harry Kane. But as you can see here, Jose Mourinho won the tactical battle, and some may even deem this as a tactical masterclass. His bravery to go with a disjointed press led to a goal. He was able to find a legitimate route to goal in that space behind Mustafi and Bellerin, and we witnessed a combination of Lucas Moura and Harry Kane creating quality chances. And frankly, if it wasn't for Martinez's heroics, Spurs could have won this game by a few goals. And then when you look at it from a defensive aspect, he neutralized Arsenal's key attacking players. He had overloads across the pitch to ensure that his defense wasn't breached. And frankly, Hugo Lloris didn't have to make any legitimate quality save besides one Aubameyang snapshot, and that ultimately epitomizes a dominant performance. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.